Hold up two identical grocery receipts from two different Coles stores located just 5 miles apart, showing a 22% price difference for the exact same basket of goods. You aren't imagining things. Your local Coles is legally taxing you just because of your zip code, and if you're shopping at one of these 8 specific locations, you are funding their record profit margins. The modern Australian supermarket duopoly presents an elaborate illusion of choice. Every store looks identical on the surface, wrapped in the same corporate branding, featuring the same promotional cardboard cutouts, and stocking the same house brand cereal. But beneath that uniform veneer, a quiet financial experiment is running across suburbs and postcodes. Walk out of the checkout lane on any given Tuesday, wondering how a basic cart of pantry essentials suddenly cost hundreds of dollars more than it did last month, and you are feeling the real-world effects of that hidden architecture. With household budgets stretched to breaking point by systemic inflation, trusting that a major supermarket brand has your back is a quiet financial hazard. Location dictates pricing structure far more than most shoppers realize, and the corporate algorithms dictating your weekly receipt care very little about your personal financial stress. To understand how you're being overcharged without realizing it, we have to start our 8-part audit with the most insidious structural trap in the suburban retail network: the high-density express footprint. Inner city and high-density smaller footprint. Coles stores weaponize space limitations to justify hyper-inflated pricing and reduce product ranges. The core engine driving this markup is the square meter rent tax. When a retail location occupies prime metropolitan real estate, the cost per square meter skyrockets. Instead of absorbing those overheads into corporate margins, these stores pass the cost directly to the consumer item by item. You are trading variety for steep markups on staple goods, walking into a compressed floor plan, where a block of cheese or a carton of milk costs significantly more than it would at a sprawling suburban branch 20 minutes down the highway. Compounding this issue is the restricted markdown window for expiring stock. In high-turnover inner-city locations where foot traffic is constant and space is at a premium, staff rarely have the time or physical storage to process aggressive clearance discounting for items nearing their use-by dates. Instead, corporate logistics models favor letting short shelf-life goods sit at full price until they age out, relying on captive consumers who prioritize speed over thrift. Why do inner-city express stores cost significantly more for the exact same branded goods? Because you are paying a hidden real estate tax on your milk and bread, funding the high commercial lease square footage costs of a corporate giant while receiving fewer choices and zero discount flexibility. But a high-density footprint is only the baseline of systemic retail extraction. Moving away from the concrete canyons of the inner city, we encounter remote or single supermarket regional Coles locations that face zero local competition and exploit captive consumer bases. When a town has only one major supermarket chain servicing a 100-kilometer radius, traditional market pressures evaporate. Without localized market pressure, corporate headquarters enjoy uninhibited margin expansion. While public-facing statements often blame long-distance logistics and transport costs for high rural grocery prices, financial audits reveal that transport cost inflation is frequently magnified far beyond realistic transport economics. A truckload of dry goods does not cost double to transport simply because it crossed a regional boundary, yet the shelf price reflects an entirely different reality. Furthermore, these isolated locations often suffer from reduced fresh food rotation quality masked by their geographical isolation. Produce sits longer on shelves because delivery schedules are sparse, meaning regional shoppers pay a premium price for lower-grade perishables. How much extra do regional Australians pay simply due to a lack of competing supermarket options? Department of Consumer Affairs investigations and competition watchdog inquiries consistently show that isolated regional branches maintain profit margins that dwarf their metropolitan counterparts. The supply chain excuses fall apart under rigorous financial auditing, revealing that isolation is treated as an open invitation to extract maximum revenue from communities with nowhere else to turn. Stores positioned in high-income demographics introduce an even more calculated layer of manipulation, dynamic pricing, and premium displays that mask aggressive item-by-item price gouging. Corporate retail algorithms track demographic disposable income modeling down to the individual postcode. If a branch sits in an area where average household incomes exceed national benchmarks, the pricing structure shifts. This isn't about charging for specialty imported cheeses. It's about the psychological trap of luxury staging applied to everyday packaged items. Basic baking goods, dairy staples, and pantry fundamentals receive disproportionate markups compared to working-class district branches, operating on the assumption that shoppers in wealthier postcodes are less likely to audit their receipts or notice a 40-cent creep on flour and sugar. Do wealthy suburbs subsidize discounts elsewhere, or do they just face higher markups because they can afford them? The data points conclusively to the latter. Corporate profiling treats affluence as a vulnerability, turning routine weekly shops into a silent wealth extraction exercise disguised as a neighborhood grocery store. Sprawling footprint. Coles locations in outer suburban hubs present a different kind of financial hazard. Massive inventory bloat and overextended footprints, where administrative waste costs are built directly into shelf prices. These massive superstores carry an immense shrinkage and waste tax built into dry goods margins. Because the floor plan is enormous, inventory must be ordered on a massive scale to prevent empty aisles, leading to stagnant stock rotation hidden behind endless rows of identical packaging. Here, you encounter the true illusion of choice. 15 different variations of the exact same cereal or sauce, manufactured by the exact same parent company, occupying prime shelf space while driving up overhead storage costs. Why do massive superstores still carry inflated prices despite massive bulk purchasing power? Because the multi-million-dollar waste budget comprising damaged packaging, expired logistics, and unsold perishables has to be recovered somewhere, and it is systematically averaged across every barcode in the store. Before we look at the absolute worst offender, let's look at the secret corporate document that proves these price hikes aren't accidental inflation, they're pre-planned algorithmic targets. Internal retail leasing strategies reveal that stores locked into major exclusive shopping mall contracts operate under immense financial pressure. Shopping center monopoly clauses often lock out independent discounters, giving the major supermarket anchor total dominance over the mall's foot traffic. However, this dominance comes at a staggering cost: exorbitant commercial lease fees. To recover these overheads, store management quietly inflates prices across high-velocity categories. Furthermore, promotional catalog item availability suffers severely at these locations. Because mall-wide marketing fees and cooperative advertising agreements eat into local store budgets, promotional stock allocations are frequently slashed or sell out almost instantly, forcing shoppers into full-price alternatives. Commercial property lease agreements dictate the baseline of your weekly groceries more than most consumers ever realize, turning your local shopping center anchor into a high-overhead machine, passing its rent bill directly to your kitchen. Moving deeper into the operational failures of the network, we find Coles locations that systematically manipulate markdown schedules, throwing away expired stock rather than offering honest clearance discounts to protect artificial profit margins. Corporate policy metrics frequently discourage aggressive clearance pricing because discounting damages brand margin integrity on paper. Instead of marking down meat and produce by 50% as it approaches its use-by date, these ghost markdown stores prefer to log the inventory as commercial waste. The environmental and financial tragedy of artificial waste disposal over local discounting is staggering, driven by a corporate culture that fears cheap goods will devalue the brand's premium image. Consumer deception thrives here through fake clearance tags, bright yellow stickers placed on items that feature microscopic price reductions of 10 or 20 cents, designed to trick budget-conscious shoppers into thinking they've secured a bargain. Why won't supermarkets discount expiring stock heavily instead of trashing it? Because protecting the artificial price floor is deemed more profitable than honest inventory clearance. Older, outdated Coles store formats represent a uniquely frustrating experience, paying modern Tier 1 prices while operating on aging, inefficient supply chains and crumbling refrigeration infrastructure. Shopping at a legacy location means you are paying premium corporate prices at a store that hasn't seen a structural layout or energy efficiency upgrade in over a decade. High energy loss and inventory shrink costs from failing refrigeration units are quietly factored into product pricing. Compounding this physical degradation is the alarming frequency of digital shelf tag inaccuracies, where the price displayed on the shelf differs from the price scanned at checkout. Consumer Protection Agency reports on checkout price scanning accuracy consistently flag legacy stores as high-risk zones for discrepancy errors, where automated price updates fail to sync with physical shelf labels. almost always resulting in an overcharge in the store's favor. At the absolute peak of corporate margin extraction sits the ultimate offender. Coles locations built directly into major commuter transport interchanges and transit hubs. These stores treat grocery shopping like airport convenience retail, leveraging commuter desperation during peak morning and evening hours. They operate on minimalist stock ranges priced at a premium because buyers have zero alternative within walking distance of the platform. The psychological speed shopping traps embedded in their design narrow entry corridors, high turnover grab-and-go meal solutions, and complete omission of price comparison signage are engineered to prevent rational purchasing decisions. Just how much more expensive is a commuter hub Coles compared to a standard suburban branch? Basket audits reveal markup scaling up to 30% on basic essentials, making transit hub locations the crown jewel of corporate margin extraction. Now that we've exposed all 8 traps, where on earth can we actually shop safely? Breaking the duopoly cycle requires looking outside the major corporate ecosystems entirely, starting with independent cooperative networks and regional community-backed co-ops. The cooperative model fundamentally alters the retail equation by establishing direct grower relationships that bypass corporate middlemen markups. Without a distant board of directors demanding quarterly profit growth, regional co-ops operate on sustainable margins that reflect true supply costs rather than algorithmic demographic profiling. They offer genuine local markdown flexibility, dropping prices sharply on seasonal gluts because their priority is moving food, not protecting an artificial profit margin. These centralized supply chains protect you from corporate greed by keeping money circulating within regional economies, ensuring that the price on the shelf is tied to the cost of production rather than the zip code of the buyer. Completing our safety audit is the second secure shopping environment. Specialized independent community markets and transparent wholesale powerhouses that operate on radically different philosophical foundations. These independent hubs rely on fixed margin caps on essential household staples, legally or operationally locking their profit margins on milk, bread, and flour to a minimal percentage. They provide radical ingredient and sourcing transparency without marketing smoke and mirrors, displaying grower profiles and transparent supply chain breakdowns right beside the produce. An honest supermarket doesn't need to hide behind corporate jargon, dynamic pricing algorithms, or fake clearance tags. By shifting your weekly shopping budget toward these transparent alternatives, you bypass the duopoly's regional taxes entirely. Now that you know which retail environments to completely cross off your map and where to direct your weekly shopping budget, let's look at the ultimate framework to protect your family from corporate pricing games once and for all. Convenience is the most expensive currency in modern retail, and major corporate supermarkets rely entirely on your blind trust in their brand uniformity to mask localized financial exploitation. You do not have to accept the zip code tax or corporate margin padding. Voting with your feet and supporting transparent, independent alternatives is the only language massive conglomerates understand. The next time you walk down a supermarket aisle, remember that your wallet is your vote. Don't spend it where you're being taken for granted.